It was a quiet evening in the small town of Ravenswood, where the streets were lined with old brick houses, their windows glowing faintly in the fading light. Emma Dawson, a curious and lively teenager, strolled along the cobbled road, her school bag slung over her shoulder. The air was crisp, carrying the faint smell of pine from the forest nearby. It seemed like an ordinary day until it wasn't. As Emma passed the abandoned Sinclair mansion, her steps faltered. The house loomed in the distance, its shutters hanging crookedly, the iron gate creaking in the breeze. Everyone in town whispered about the mansion, calling it cursed. No one dared to go near it, but tonight something caught Emma's eye. A faint, flickering light appeared in one of the upstairs windows. It disappeared almost as quickly as it came, leaving her frozen in place. Emma's heart raced. "That house has been empty for years," she muttered under her breath. The logical thing would be to keep walking, but her curiosity wouldn't let her. Who or what was inside? With a glance over her shoulder, she decided to step closer, feeling both scared and thrilled. Little did she know, this was only the beginning. The rain poured heavily as Max Carter hurried down the dimly lit street, his jacket pulled tightly around him. He glanced nervously over his shoulder, the streetlights casting long shadows behind him. The usually bustling neighborhood was eerily quiet tonight, with only the sound of raindrops hitting the pavement to keep him company. But Max wasn't alone. He could feel a presence lurking just out of sight. As he turned the corner, his heart skipped a beat. A figure stood at the end of the alley, shrouded in darkness. Max stopped in his tracks, his breath catching in his throat. The figure didn't move, but its eyes, glowing faintly red, seemed to pierce through the rain and lock onto him. Max wanted to run, but his legs wouldn't cooperate. The figure tilted its head as if studying him. Then, in a voice that was both chilling and calm, it spoke. "You can't hide from the truth, Max." "What truth?" Max stammered, his voice barely audible over the rain. The figure stepped closer, and Max's instincts screamed at him to flee. But before he could move, the streetlights flickered and went out, plunging the alley into complete darkness. Lena Harper was walking home from the library, her backpack slung over one shoulder and her thoughts lost in the pages of the mystery novel she had just borrowed. The streets were quieter than usual, and the chilly night breeze sent shivers down her spine. She adjusted her scarf and quickened her pace, eager to reach the safety of her warm home. As she passed an old abandoned house on Willow Street, she felt a strange pull, as if the house itself was calling her. Its windows, broken and covered in grime, looked like empty eyes staring back at her. Lena hesitated. She had walked this route countless times before, but tonight something felt different. A faint sound caught her attention, a soft whisper, almost too quiet to hear. Lena froze. The whisper grew louder, forming words that sent chills racing down her spine. "Lena, come closer." She turned around, her heart pounding, but the street was empty. The whisper came again, more insistent this time. Against every instinct screaming at her to run, she took a cautious step toward the house. The door creaked open on its own, revealing a dark hallway. "Hello?" Lena's voice trembled as she stepped inside, curiosity overtaking her fear. Ethan Miles sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the peculiar box his grandfather had left him. It was small, carved from a dark wood that seemed almost alive, with swirling patterns etched into its surface. The box had a single golden latch, gleaming as if it had been polished just yesterday. A note was attached to it, written in his grandfather's familiar, shaky handwriting, "Open only when you're ready to face the truth." For days, Ethan had debated whether to open it. What truth could it hold? Was it a family secret? A warning? He couldn't shake the curiosity building inside him, even though a small part of him felt nervous about what he might discover. As he reached for the box, a cold breeze swept through the room, though the windows were shut tight. The air seemed to hum, and a strange energy filled the space. Ethan's hand trembled as he unclasped the latch. Slowly, he lifted the lid. Inside was an old key, its metal tarnished with age. Beneath the key was a folded piece of paper. Ethan unfolded it, and his eyes widened as he read the words, "The journey begins where the clock strikes 13. Ethan's heart raced. 13? What did it mean? Just then, the room's only clock began to chime. It was midnight, yet the chimes kept going. 11, 12, 13. The box glowed faintly in his hands. The adventure was only beginning. Maya Lane never expected her day to turn out this way. It began like any other, with her rushing out the door, her bag slung over her shoulder, and her phone buzzing with notifications. She was halfway to the library when her phone pinged with an unknown message. Your life is about to change forever. Meet me at the corner of Willow and Elm. At first, Maya thought it was a prank. Who would send such a mysterious text? But as she stared at the screen, there was no name attached, no number visible. Against her better judgment, curiosity got the better of her. She turned around and headed for the intersection. When Maya arrived, the street was eerily quiet. The familiar buzz of the city seemed muted, as if the world was holding its breath. Standing at the corner was a tall man in a long coat. "You came," he said in a low voice. "I wasn't sure if you would." "Who are you?" Maya asked, keeping her distance. The man reached into his coat and pulled out a small envelope. "This is for you," he said, handing it to her. Before she could ask another question, he disappeared into the shadows. Inside the envelope was a single piece of paper with 5 words: "Trust no one but yourself." Maya's heart pounded as she realized her life would never be the same. Jacob Darnell wasn't the type of person who believed in coincidences. That's why, when he opened his front door to find a small, unmarked package waiting for him, he felt a chill run down his spine. He didn't remember ordering anything, and no one knew where he lived. The box was plain, no labels or markings, just a red ribbon tied around it. Hesitating, Jacob picked it up and brought it inside. He sat at the kitchen table, eyes fixed on the box, as if expecting something to happen. Slowly, he untied the ribbon and lifted the lid. Inside was a black notebook. No note, no explanation. Just a notebook. He opened it. The first page was blank. Jacob frowned, closing it again. But then, something caught his eye, a small symbol on the back cover. It was a circle with strange lines drawn through it. He'd seen that symbol before, in an old book his grandfather had kept locked away. Suddenly, a knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Jacob walked over cautiously, but no one was there. All that remained was a single piece of paper on the doorstep. It was a message, written in the same handwriting from the notebook. "You've been chosen. The game begins now." Jacob felt his heart race. This wasn't just a coincidence anymore. It was something much bigger.